All right, welcome everyone. So in this session, I'm going to be drawing an armored personnel carrier. And on the other side of the screen, I actually have collected a bunch of reference. Always a good idea to collect as much reference as possible. And in this case, I'm drawing straight out of Photoshop and just pretty much eyeballing the perspective here. Sometimes I like to go into 3D, block out the initial basic shapes, and use that as a guide for perspective. But for this one, I feel that I'm proficient enough and I've done it enough times that, that I could just kind of eyeball it and sketch it out. But there are actually some good tutorials out there in terms of using guides to determine the right perspective. There's a channel called Modern Day James, and I'm going to link their channel into the description. So here I am just taking some of the wheels, detailing them, and once I found one that I like, just duplicating it 3 times, or twice rather. Now erasing just some of the parts that are overlapping. I duplicated it on the other side here, but I realized that from this perspective you can't actually see them, so there was no need. I'm just adding some details, some panel lines, playing with ideas of the windshield, sort of to determine where the driver would be seeing the outside from, and just playing with different ideas here. None of them quite working out, so I decided to go back. And then finally, looking back at reference, I tried something that I ended up liking. You know, something asymmetrical. And then I tried kind of duplicating it on the other side. Didn't quite work out. And then I ended up opting for sort of like a vent-like look on the other side. And at this point, I'm really liking the asymmetrical sort of design. And then now I'm going to start detailing some of the backside here. And at this point, I was like, you know, most of the design is quite angular. So I decided to add a cylindrical, sort of like a softer shape to the design. Duplicate it on the other side. And again, erasing the parts that are overlapping. Decided to add some antennas, or antennae. And then here, trying to add some more rounded shapes, some more softer shapes, to break up the silhouette, to kind of like really stick out of the main frame. Trying out like a dish sort of look, like a radar sort of a look. But I was kind of struggling with it. Didn't really work out, but that's okay. Yeah, at this point I was like, yeah, not feeling it. And I found it actually a little difficult to break the silhouette from this perspective. It's a little bit of a top-down or 3/4 or whatever point of view. and it was kind of difficult to break the perspective. So I kind of took a break from that and started detailing out other parts. And here, sort of adding some indentations to the wheels, kind of trying to add a little bit of depth to them, adding some tread detail. Yeah, just really having fun with the design at this point. And then at this point I realized that the perspective was a little bit off, so I went ahead and fixed it. Had to adjust some of the other details that I added after, but that's okay. And then at this point I'm feeling pretty happy with the main design, so I started to add some shading to it. I started with pretty much like a mid-gray, and then I used the levels to increase the value a little bit, brighten it up a little bit. And then I went back to add some more line detailing. So just because I went ahead and started to do some shading, it didn't mean that the line art aspect of it was done. Sometimes moving ahead with one particular phase or aspect of the drawing actually opens up some ideas that you have to go back to. So that's what I did here. I went back to the line art and added some more detail. And yeah, I didn't quite like the lights either, so I went back and did a little bit of a different shape. And then here at this point, I was like, you know what, let's try again. Let's try to break the silhouette. Add some roof details here. And then again, I decided for more of like a predominantly angular shape with a few circular elements to it. And I found that this worked out a lot better than the radial sort of what do you call that? Radar look. Then I tried adding some more antennae to the top here, but I found that it became too much with the other two in the back. So I kind of trimmed it down a little bit. And then here I went back to the wheels, added some more detailing to it. And now it's starting to feel really good. The design is feeling a lot stronger at this point. And now that I felt pretty good with the overall design, I wanted to add some more other detailing. And when you look at a lot of the reference for military vehicles, there's a lot of these riveting, these things that stick out, I guess, to hold all the panels together. And yeah, little details like these really add a lot to the visual interest of the drawing. Yeah. And here again, like most of the designs started feeling really angular, so I decided to add like a capsule sort of shape here to kind of break it up, and again break up the silhouette from the top. And you'll notice that I always flip horizontally back and forth, and that's really good practice in terms of making sure that your perspective is correct. A lot of the times when you're drawing too long in one view, that you don't notice the little errors that you make. You don't notice all the skewing that might be happening. So it's always good practice to once in a while, I'd say maybe every 5 minutes or so, to just flip the canvas horizontally, and you'll notice that the mistakes stick out quite noticeably when you do that. And at this point, I'm starting to add some shadows. I wanted to go for the graphic look, so I went with full black. I wanted to keep the values for this drawing in particular quite graphic, so I wanted to be quite selective with the different values that I wanted to use. So tweaking a little bit, I felt like the initial mid-tone for the vehicle was a little bit too dark, or too light rather, and so I darkened it a little bit, bring it closer a little bit more to the dark shadows. And then now I felt pretty good with it enough that I wanted to try some coloring. And in this case, I'm using a multiply layer. And yeah, I just picked a color that I wanted to try out, and started just painting all the painted parts. I'm trying to use a little bit of color balancing here to kind of get away from the too much of the tanned look. And then going in there to paint the wheels to bring it down to a lower value. Yeah, so adding the darker values to the wheels really help sort of solidify the look. Having a lighter valued rubber compared to the body of the vehicle looks odd, so darkening it up a little bit does a lot. And again, here, like, sticking pretty close to a very selective number of values, but you know, adding a little bit of dirt here and there, some wear and tear, just to add a little bit of visual interest, but not straying too far from the selective number of values. And on the top left there, you notice that I have a sort of a palette. Just an easy way for me to go back and color pick the colors that I've already used. And just adding some more details to the wheels, just so it's not perfectly circular. And tweaking the values a little bit more. And now here I'm playing all around with the blending modes here. So I started off with the multiply layer, But here I'm trying to play with an additional overlay layer in terms of adding some of the highlights. Now you can see that adding a little bit of very subtle highlighting starts to make the image pop a little bit more. Here using a soft smear brush to apply it so that it's not all perfectly applied, and it's a little bit loose and organic looking. And here I'm trying out some accent colors here. So it takes a lot of experimentation. Sometimes you try things, they don't work out, but that's the name of the game. You just got to try it out, and if it doesn't work, you can try something else. And that's sort of the beauty of it, is that you try things, and you have a picture in your head of how it's going to look, but at least in my case, it never really works out that way. And the final result is always something a little bit different from what I had initially sought out for, which, I'm not sure if that makes me a good or bad artist, but it always kind of surprises me, the final state of the art. And I think that as long as you're satisfied with the end, that's really all that matters. And I think that's just the real fun part of the creative process, is ending up with something that you like, that you might have never expected to begin with. And at this point, I'm sort of settling in with the double stripe at the back here. This is starting to feel good for me. And just trying to make sure the perspective is right here. Again, flipping horizontally back and forth. And at this point, I'm starting to think about accent colors to really, really bring out sort of the make things pop a little bit more. You see, even adding a little hints of the white here and there really, really does a lot, as long as you do it sparingly and very methodically, and don't overuse it. It really brings the image out. And at this point, I'm really just polishing the image, adding a few more accents. Some of the red accent, again, really adds a lot to the image. Just little hints of it here and there, not too much. And yeah, at this point I wanted to try a different blend mode. I'm using a color dodge here with a soft brush, with a high saturated color, with high values. And yeah, it really does a lot in terms of making a certain part of the design pop. and it kind of provides this very playful and bright um, sort of playful look. And yeah, I really liked it for what I was trying to do here. So that like slight hint of red even on the wheels there, I think makes the image quite a lot more interesting, and, you know, and a lot less serious. Yeah, again, going back to the initial phase of the line work and adding a few more lines. You know, just because I've gotten all the way to the painting phase doesn't mean I can't go back and tweak a few more things. And yeah, this is pretty much the finished image here. I decided to kind of play around with the colors a little bit and came out with a couple color variants. I tried adding some more detail to the headlights, but I decided that the simpler look was better. Yeah, there you go.